Before I get into it, tell me in the comments, what's the one thing a parent said to you that you never forgot? Not because it was kind. I was 31 years old the night my brother told me to get out of his house. Not my stepfather, not some distant uncle I barely knew, my brother. The one I used to share a bedroom with. The one I taught to ride a bike in the parking lot of our old apartment complex on Garfield Avenue. The one I stayed up with until 2 in the morning when his first girlfriend broke his heart junior year. That brother. He said it in front of everyone. His wife, her mother, 2 of his friends from work, and my mother, who sat in the corner of the living room and didn't say a single word. And I left. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I picked up my bag, the one I had packed 3 days earlier because some part of me already knew. And I walked out the front door into a February night that felt colder than it actually was. But here's what nobody in that room knew. Here's what I hadn't told anyone, not even my best friend. My name was on the deed to that house. Let me back up, because this story doesn't make sense without the beginning. Our mother raised us alone from the time I was 9, and my brother Terrence was 6. Our father left on a Tuesday in March. I remember because it was picture day at school, and I wore a blue dress with white buttons down the front. He was gone before I got home. My mother was sitting at the kitchen table, with both hands wrapped around a coffee mug that had long gone cold, just staring at the wall. She never fully recovered from that. I don't say it to be cruel. I say it because it's true, and because it explains a lot of what came after. She worked 2 jobs for most of my childhood. A receptionist job during the day at a dental office on the east side and waitressing 3 nights a week at an Italian restaurant downtown. She was tired in a way that went beyond sleep. And Terrence and I learned early to take care of ourselves, to take care of each other, and mostly to take care of her when we could. But even exhausted, even spread that thin, she had a favorite. I knew it by the time I was 11. Terrence could do no wrong. He was funny, he was charming, he had her laugh in her eyes, and more than any of that, he looked like our father. I looked like her side of the family. Her mother, her aunts. The women who had, apparently, made her life very difficult growing up. I don't think she meant to take it out on me. I genuinely don't. But there is a particular kind of loneliness in being 12 years old and watching your mother hug your brother for 20 seconds and then turn to give you a pat on the shoulder and say, "Good job, sweetheart," in the same tone she used to talk to a cashier at the grocery store. I stopped trying to compete when I was about 14. I just focused on school, and school was good to me. I was the first person in family to graduate college, then the first to get a master's degree in accounting. I built a career I was proud of. I had my own apartment in a city that felt like mine. I had a life. Terrence, for his part, struggled in his 20s. Some bad decisions. A few years where he couldn't hold a job. He got into some debt that I helped him out of twice without telling our mother because I didn't want her to worry. That was the kind of sister I was. When he finally got himself together, met his wife Angie, got promoted to a supervisor role at a logistics company, had a baby. I was genuinely happy for him. I threw him a party. I flew back for every holiday. I was the aunt who showed up. Our mother's health started to decline when Terrence was around 29. Her knees went first, then her hip, and eventually it became clear she couldn't live alone. Neither Terrence nor I had the kind of setup that made it easy. He and Angie had a 2-bedroom with the baby. I had a 1-bedroom across the country. I flew home and we sat at the kitchen table, the same table my mother had been sitting at the night our father left, and talked about what to do. The plan that came out of that conversation was my idea. I would use my savings to put a down payment on a 3-bedroom house big enough for my mother to live in. Terrence and Angie would take over the mortgage payments and utilities, and live there too. And my name would stay on the deed, because I had funded the down payment and I wanted some security. $40,000 of my own money. Money I had saved for years. Terrence agreed. Angie was quiet, but she signed everything. My mother cried and said we were good children. We closed on the house the following April. I went back home. I visited every few months. I paid for a night nurse twice a week when my mother's pain got worse. I sent money for things that came up. A new water heater, my mother's medication copays, things Terrence said they were a little short on that month. I thought we were a team. The first sign that something had shifted came about 8 months after they moved in. I was visiting for Thanksgiving. I had offered to host dinner and cook, the way I always did, and I'd arrived 2 days early to prep. Angie's mother was coming, and Angie had mentioned she was a good cook and loved to feel useful, so I suggested we cook together. A nice idea, I thought. Angie did not think it was a nice idea. I'm not sure exactly what I did wrong, if I'm being honest. I tried to be warm. I complimented the way she seasoned the turkey brine. But there was something in the air that whole visit, a tension I couldn't name, a feeling that I had walked into a space that no longer had room for me. On the last night before I flew out, Terrence came into the kitchen while I was washing dishes and said, almost casually, Angie feels like you treat this place like your house. I turned off the faucet. I turned around. It is my house, I said. Partially. You know what I mean, he said. You come in and take over. She feels like a guest in her own home. I didn't say what I wanted to say, which was that she had moved into a home that I paid for, that I was helping fund every month, and that I had done nothing but try to be welcoming. I just said I was sorry she felt that way and I'd try to be more mindful, and I went to bed. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. Over the next year, the calls from Terrence got shorter. Our mother would call me directly sometimes and I could hear something careful in her voice, like she was watching what she said. When I visited at Christmas, Angie barely spoke to me. My old room, the one I stayed in when I visited, had been turned into a home office. I slept on a fold-out cot in the basement. I didn't say anything. I told myself they were just settling into the house, building their life. I should give them space. And then in January, Terrence asked me to sign over my portion of the deed. He called it simplifying things. He said Angie's name wasn't on the deed, and that made her feel insecure. He said it would be better for everyone if it was just his name. You don't even live here, he said. It doesn't make sense for you to have your name on something in a city you don't live in. I asked him what would happen to the $40,000 I had put in. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I've been paying the mortgage for almost 2 years. That evens it out. I thought about that. I thought about how much the mortgage payment was, $1,400 a month. 2 years of payments came to $33,600, still less than what I had put in. Not to mention the other things I'd sent money for. Not to mention that the house had already appreciated nearly $60,000 in value since we bought it. I need to think about it, I said. He didn't like that answer. There's nothing to think about, he said. I just need you to sign the papers. I said I needed a few weeks. He said fine, but his voice said something very different. I talked to a real estate attorney the following week. She was a friend of a coworker, sharp, no nonsense, the kind of person who laid things out plainly. Do not sign anything, she said before I even finished the story. You are a co-owner. That deed gives you legal rights to that property. If you sign over your interest without being compensated, you are simply giving away an asset worth a significant amount of money. She helped me understand exactly where I stood. I wasn't on the mortgage, but I was on the deed, which meant Terrence could not sell or refinance the house without my signature. I had options I hadn't known about. I went home that night and I sat with all of it. I didn't want the house. I want to be clear about that. I had no desire to move into that house or to force my brother and his family out. That was never what this was about for me. I had put my money in to take care of our mother. That was the beginning and end of my intention. But I also had started to understand something that took me a long time to fully see. My brother had decided I wasn't family. Not really. I was a resource that had been useful, and now that the resource had been used, I was an inconvenience. I thought about all the years I had been the one who kept us together. The money I had given without being asked. The holidays I had flown home for. The times I had bitten my tongue when my mother made it so clear, without meaning to, that I was second. I thought about what it meant to have spent 31 years being grateful for scraps from people who were supposed to love me the way I loved them. And I made a decision. Not about the house, about myself. I booked a flight home in February. I didn't tell Terrence I was coming. I told my mother, because I always told my mother, and she said, "Oh good honey, it'll be nice to have you." When I arrived, there was a gathering at the house. Not a party exactly, more like a few people over on a Saturday afternoon. Angie's mother was there again, 2 of Terrence's friends from work. My mother in her recliner by the window with a blanket over her lap. I sat down and had a glass of iced tea and made small talk. I waited. About an hour in, Terrence pulled me aside in the hallway near the laundry room. "Did you make a decision?" he said. "I have," I said. "I want to talk to you about it, so you'll sign?" "I'd like to discuss compensation first," I said. "For my initial investment." The look that crossed his face, I won't forget it. Something between disbelief and a very old, very familiar anger. The same look he used to get when we were teenagers and I wouldn't lend him money I needed for my own things. "Compensation," he repeated, like the word tasted bad. $40,000, I said, "or a fair buyout based on current appraisal value. Either is fine." "You're joking," he said. "I'm not. That money was for Mom," he said. "You did that for the family." "I did," I said, "and I'm still doing things for the family. I'm just asking to be treated like a member of it." He stepped closer, His voice dropped. I have built a life in this house. My wife and my son live here. You show up twice a year and act like this place belongs to you. You want to be compensated? After everything this family has done for you? I almost laughed, but I didn't. What has this family's done for me, Terrence? I asked. I kept my voice quiet. Can you name one thing? He stared at me. I want you out, he said. Get your bag and get out of my house. Tonight. He said it loud enough that I could hear the conversation in the living room stop. Okay, I said, and I went and got my bag, the one I had packed knowing something like this might happen. I said goodbye to my mother, who held my hand and looked frightened in a way that broke my heart, and also told me everything I needed to know about how much she understood and how little she would do. I nodded to Angie. I didn't say anything to Terrence's friends, who were staring at their phones or the ceiling, doing what people do when they witness something uncomfortable. I walked out the front door. It was a cold February night. The street was quiet. The streetlights made everything orange-gray. I sat in my rental car for a few minutes, not crying, not angry, just sitting. Then I opened my notes app and scrolled to a number I had saved 3 weeks earlier. I had done my homework before that visit. After meeting with the real estate attorney, I had spent some time understanding exactly what my position was. The house had been purchased for $310,000. In less than 2 years, the neighborhood had seen significant development. A new grocery store anchor, a transit expansion that had been announced. The current estimated value was somewhere between $380,000 and $400,000. My name was on the deed as a co-owner. Terrence's name was on the mortgage. What that meant, legally, was this. Terrence could not refinance, could not take out a home equity loan, could not sell the property without my written consent, and if he ever defaulted on the mortgage, the bank would come after the asset, which I also had partial claim to. I had spoken to the attorney twice more after our first meeting. I understood my options very clearly. I also understood that exercising those options aggressively would mean a fight, a court case, destroyed relationships, money spent on lawyers. That was not what I wanted. What I wanted was simple. I wanted to be bought out fairly. My original investment, or the equivalent in equity. The attorney said any reasonable mediation would likely result in exactly that outcome. So I had prepared a written proposal. 2 pages, fair language, no hostility. I had brought a copy with me in my bag, along with a folder of documentation. The original purchase agreement, records of my financial contributions, the current estimated valuation from a licensed appraiser I had hired for $400. I had slid the folder under my mother's bedroom door the night before, with a note that said, "Mom, I love you. I want you to understand what's been happening." I also left a voicemail for Terrence's wife, not confrontational, just factual, outlining my position and saying I hoped we could resolve this without involving lawyers. When Terrence told me to get out, I had already done everything I needed to do. My attorney sent a formal letter the following Monday. Terrence called me that Thursday. He didn't yell. His voice was flat in a way that scared me more than yelling would have. "You hired an attorney," he said. "I did," I said. "You're doing this to our family." "No," I said. "I'm protecting myself. There's a difference." "Mom is upset," he said. "I know," I said. "I'm sorry she's in the middle of this. I tried to handle this quietly." "You want money from your own family," he said. "I want to be treated fairly," I said. "That's all I have ever wanted." There was a long silence. "What exactly do you want?" he said finally. "A buyout," I said. $40,000. "We get the deed transferred to your name only, and we're done. I don't want anything else. I just want what I put in." Another silence. "And if I don't?" he said. "Then my attorney will file to partition the property," I said. "Which means a court orders it sold and we both get our share of the proceeds. That process typically takes 8 to 14 months, involves court costs for both parties, and will result in you, Angie, and your son needing to find somewhere else to live while it resolves. That's not what I want, but it is what the law allows." He hung up. 12 days later, a check for $40,000 via certified mail. There was no note, no letter. Just the check, in an envelope with a return address I didn't recognize. It turned out to be the address of whatever attorney he had found on short notice. I held it for a long time before I deposited it. I want to be honest about what I felt, because it wasn't what I expected. I thought I would feel relieved, or vindicated, or maybe even sad in a clean way. What I actually felt was a kind of hollow grief, the specific grief of understanding, finally and completely, the shape of something you had always half known. My brother loved me the way some people love a backup plan. Fine to have around, easy to ignore when no longer needed. And my mother. My mother loved both of her children. I believe that, I do. But she had taught him, without meaning to, that I was the one who could be taken from. I signed the deed transfer paperwork that same week. My mother called me on a Sunday, about a month after everything was finalized. We talked for almost an hour. She asked how I was. She told me about her physical therapy, about a cooking show she'd been watching, about the neighbor's dog who kept getting into the yard. She didn't mention Terrence. I didn't bring him up. Near the end of the call, she got quiet. Then she said, "I should have stood up for you more, when you were little." I know I didn't. I didn't know what to say. I don't think there's a right thing to say when someone finally tells you a truth you spent decades trying not to see. "I know you did your best," I said. Which was true. "I'm proud of you," she said. "I've always been proud of you. I'm sorry I wasn't better at showing it." I told her I loved her. I meant it. We still talk every Sunday. She asks about my work, about my apartment, about a man I've been seeing who she has already decided she wants to meet. I ask about her physical therapy and the neighbor's dog and the cooking show. Terrence and I haven't spoken. I don't know if we will. Some days I miss him, the brother I thought he was, or maybe the brother I hoped he would become. Other days I just feel the particular quiet of a life that no longer holds its breath waiting for something. I've been buying plants lately. My apartment has a south-facing window I never paid attention to before. My best friend says I'm becoming a person who has her life together. I think maybe she's right. The $40,000 went into a high-yield savings account. I'm not sure what I'll do with it yet. Part of me thinks I should use it for something that matters. Something that's mine in a way that can't be signed away or argued over. But mostly I think about what I almost lost that wasn't even the money. It was the version of myself that would have kept quiet. That would have signed whatever paper was put in front of her and driven back to the airport and told herself it was fine. That this was just how family worked. That asking for something you were owed made you selfish and difficult, and the kind of person who didn't deserve to be loved anyway. I almost stayed that person. I'm glad I didn't. I never needed him to give me a house. I needed him to treat me like a sister. And when the choice became clear, that I could have one or the other but not both, I chose myself. That's not the ending I wanted, but it's the one that's mine.